In this video, we're going to be taking a look at some awesome liquid simulation visual effects inside of Blender. Hello everyone, I hope you guys are doing amazing. Now today, as you saw at the beginning of the video, we're going to be working on a visual effects shot that has some liquid simulation. And so in this video, we're going to be talking about that workflow from LiquidGen to Blender and how to marry that with visual effects in mind. If you're actually interested in the full kind of tutorial, including the camera tracking, compositing, literally everything that I did for this shot, I'll actually provide the full long form video on my Patreon for my Patreon members. So definitely go ahead and check that out down below. Really, thanks to all my Patreon members. They really help support me here on the channel. So again, huge thanks to them. Go check it out in the description below if you want the full kind of tutorial for this shot. Anyways, as you can see, here is the final result for the video. We have my phone pouring out some beer. And so let's go ahead and jump inside of Blender to start our workflow. Okay, so we already have the scene fully camera tracked, and now we are ready to start adding in some objects and dealing with our liquid simulation. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and first of all rotate the scene just so that this edge is matching perfectly with how it should be. So if I scale this up, what I could do is come over here to wireframe. I'll get our synthesized world again. This is just the empty that's kind of parented to the camera and the trackers. Then RZ, rotate that around. I'm basically just looking for this kind of line down here. You can barely see it on your end, but I'm just looking for this line to kind of match up with the table. It's going to allow us to rotate things pretty easily. Next thing I can do is let's go ahead and model out the table real quickly. There are a few other things that we can maybe model as well. So I'm just going to hit SX to scale this outward. We're going to go ahead and go to edit mode and scale this in the Y as well. Just give us a nice kind of surface area to actually use. And I might scale in the X again, just so we don't have anything falling off. Now we might have some liquid kind of fall off here and might actually look cool, so I'm going to keep it like that. Anyways, next we can go ahead and model out some of the other things, such as these headphones right here. So I'm going to go to mesh, cylinder. We can go ahead and I'm going to, let's see, what's the best way to do this? I'm going to hit SZ, scale this down. Right here, and then if I go to side view, what we want to do is we want the origin to kind of be on the bottom of the kind of cylinder. So let's rotate it on the X 90 degrees. I'm going to go to edit mode, so tab A G Z. Let's move it upwards. Again, I'm doing this because I want to be able to scale this and it not go outside of the off the ground plane. So now I can scale that and it's always going to be on the ground plane. So really quick tip there. It's a very nice workflow inside of visual effects. Let's go ahead and move this over here. I'm only going to do kind of this side of the headphones just because I think that's the side that's actually going to be interact with some of the water. But yeah, we can maybe rotate this back, something like that. And then we'll SZ. If you double tap X, you can align it with its normal X axis. So we can move that around here and let's make it a little bit thicker. So S, double tap Z, and just make it a little bit thicker. There we go. Yeah, so something like that. I might move it in, if I double tap Z, just move it back here. And let's see if that tracks pretty well. Yeah, there we go. So that is our headphones out of the way right there. So yeah, you just want to, for your own scene, kind of model out everything inside of Blender that you want to collide. Next thing we need to do is actually think about doing some of the liquid. And so what I usually do is you can totally have the liquid and stuff inside of LiquidGen, but I usually like to add that geometry and stuff inside of Blender. And so what we need is we need a container and then also a kind of liquid object that can emit it. So I'm going to add a quick UV sphere is going to be our kind of liquid container. Let's go ahead and bring this over here. We'll bring it up here. Just making sure it's kind of like in 3D space where it would be. I might actually go and bring out another window just to help. So one of these we can leave inside of the camera view. And then the other one we can come in through into the 3D space. So yeah, so I'll leave like this right here, like that. And then we do need a container to kind of catch it. So we'll go ahead and I'll add a plane, scale this down, come to the top view real quick. And all I'm looking for is to just get a little kind of container that's going to allow the water to be directed to exactly where I want it to be. So I'll move it something like that is looking pretty good. Anyway, we can go ahead and go into edit mode. I want to select these three corners and hit EZ to extrude this up. Again, this is just a kind of funnel system, so it's funneling the water out onto the floor. It'll make a little bit more sense when we export this out into LiquidGen. But that is the basic idea that you have to think through things for right now. Let's also select this and just bring it out a little bit. So just like something like that. And yeah, that is looking pretty good. I think we are ready to go ahead and start animating this. Now in testing, I was testing around if to see if we needed to actually geometry track it. I ended up just doing keyframes, and so that is totally what I'm going to do here. Just every 10 keyframes. It doesn't need to be perfect as long as the kind of liquid is going to be coming out right here. I think that's all that matters. So anyway, we'll go ahead and turn auto keying on right down here. That is this little button. And then let's go ahead and start keying. So with both these selected, I'm going to hit I to set a keyframe. We'll go to frame 70. You can see the phone is now tilted a little bit. So we'll go over here or kind of right there. And then we'll move it upwards so that the liquid is going to be coming out like right around this area is kind of what I'm looking for. And then we'll go to 80. We need to do the exact same thing. So we'll move it down like that. And then it's a little bit more tilted, so something like that is looking good. And then go to frame 90, do the same exact thing, move it and tilt it depending on where the phone is, like that. Let's go to frame 100. It comes up a little bit, something like that. 110 is like that. A little less tilted now, so something there. And then 120 is when he kind of pulls away. So what I'm going to do is, since I want the liquid to kind of all be out here, I don't want any of the liquid to be on our container. What I'm actually going to do is at frame 100, I'm going to leave it as we have it. And then frame 110 is when I'm going to pull back the entire thing so that all of it kind of falls down. Also, real quickly, I am very, very close to the ground here. So let's actually go ahead and reset this. So let's see. I don't want to go too close to the ground. So let's come back to 60. And I might, let's see, move it. See, this is tricky. Yeah, I don't want it to move down as much. So let's figure out how we can make it not move down. So we'll go to frame 90. It needs to come up a little bit. And then 100, we'll make it just come up a little bit as well. And 110, it needs to come up like that. Anyway, like I was saying, we'll go ahead and delete 110, and for 100 to 110, I'm going to actually have the container move backwards. So we'll hit G, double tap X, and just move it up here. The reason being is because, again, the phone actually comes away. So by 120, all the liquid needs to be out of this area. And so that's how we kind of affect that. So as you can see, it slides back right here, and then all the liquid is just going to fall once the phone is kind of away. So that's kind of the theory behind that. And then, of course, at the very start of it, we need the kind of phone to tilt backwards. So something like this. Yeah, just tilting backwards like that. There we go. And so that's pretty much it. We have everything pretty much set up. Now we need to go ahead and start thinking about how to export. Now, a couple things to take into account. LiquidGen is in its alpha stage, and so the collisions are a little bit rudimentary right now. So as much as we can help the collisions, that's going to be so much better. So there are kind of two things that we can do. First of all, anything that's planar in our scene, it's actually going to be tough for it to calculate the collisions. So for instance, our container is going to be planar, and so we want to add some geometry to it to add some thickness. And then also our floor. So our floor, we can easily do A, Z, just add a little bit of thickness right down here. E to extrude, by the way, I didn't mention that. But up here, there are two things that we need to do for this. First of all, there's going to be some splash and stuff. So I want to relegate the splash just to inside the phone. As you can see over here, I don't want it to splash upwards right here. And so we'll go ahead and hit F to add in a face right there. And then next thing we need to do is go ahead and make this thicker. And so an easy way to do it for this object, we'll add a solidify modifier right down here. Push the thickness up. There we go. That's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and hit apply to apply that into our scene. And there you go. Now we have that perfectly set up. And so now we can go ahead and export this out to LiquidGen. Again, everything that we can do inside of Blender will help match this. And so I'm going to select all the objects I actually want in the scene. So such as this, and then the sphere over here is looking good. And then we can go ahead and come up here with everything selected. We'll go to File. We'll go to Export. Alembic is what we want. We only want to have selection only right there. And then you can come and play around with some of these other things as well. But all of these are pretty good for our scene. We do want to make sure before we do anything that our FPS is 24, matching the footage. That's very important because the liquid physics are going to be tied to that FPS. We want to make sure that that is accurate to our footage. Let's export in Alembic again, and we can just save this wherever we want. I usually come to my assets folder and have an ABC file for stuff like this. As you can see, I've already kind of rendered some of this out, but we'll just make a new one. So Liquid tutorial version 1, again, selection only over here, scale 1, all that this stuff is fine, 1 to 175. It'll go ahead and bake out the animation for us, so all that is looking good. And we'll export that out. And there we go. Now we are ready to go ahead and jump inside of Liquid. So again, this is totally free if you are before March 9th, but highly recommend you guys check out some of their other stuff. Embergen is a great kind of resource as well, kind of similar to this. But as you can see, we have this default scene. Now I'm not going to be going over the full specifics of like how to get exactly what you want in the scene, but it's pretty self-explanatory down here. We have some colliders, we have some emitters, and we have some forces. So there are a lot of fun stuff that you can do today. This is going to be kind of a very simple kind of Liquid workflow, and so I'll try to walk through what we're doing. First of all, we do need to add a new collider shape, and we're going to import in our geometry. So we're going to come up here to File Path, and let's load in our Alembic file. So there we go. And before we do anything, I do like to come over to Simulation. We're going to make the step rate to 24. That is 24 FPS. It has it in hertz, but you can think of it as the same thing. We're going to apply and reset the simulation. Next thing we need to do is we can actually see our kind of objects down here. They are super, super tiny. So what we need to do is we need to scale these up. Usually what I'll do is I'll change this to 10, and then we'll go ahead and change this up. I think like a 200, or sorry, not 200. We'll just scale it up, maybe 1,000, something like that. It's looking pretty good. So there you go. So just set those numbers here. Basically, I'm just looking for this little circle right here to basically be the size of the circle in our kind of scene. So that is looking good right there. Next thing we need to do is go ahead and, well, first of all, let's save it. Liquid tutorial E1. Okay, so now that we have it saved, we do have to select the object, so we actually want to effect over here. So since this is just our colliders, we want to select all of our objects besides the sphere. And so that's plane 1, cylinder, and plane, just normal plane. So again, that's for collisions. Next, we need to do the emitter. We'll do the exact same process. Bring this out, go to import, and we want to select the same file path, so this one right here, and then we'll come over here and select sphere instead of all of these other ones. So there we go. We have pretty much everything set up. You can see nothing has kind of rebaked over here, and that's because in Embergen and Liquid we have to come over here and reset the animation by hitting R, and there we go. Now we have this. Now a few things out of the gate. You can see we first of all don't see the sphere, so that might be a little bit weird. So we do have to go ahead and change some things. So first of all, for the import, it natively comes in as 50% resolution. Basically, you can think of this as trying to revoxel everything so that it collides accurately inside of the program. So we're going to set that down to 100 for the collisions, because collisions are very, very important for us. So we'll go ahead and retry the program. And before I forget, we do need to go ahead and apply the same kind of scale that we did on here. So that is 10 right here, and then bump this all the way to 1,000. There we go. Now we can actually see the sphere into our scene. So again, just select this over here, and then let's go ahead and play this to see what it's doing. Now it does show the sphere here. What you could do is uncheck the show button over here just so we see the liquid itself. So there we go. Now we can see the liquid is in the scene, and since we did go ahead and set this up to a 100 resolution, it's playing a little bit slow right now. And also, like some water is going beyond the bounds. We can fix that a little bit later, but now you can see we actually have water and it's colliding with our actual objects. So that's going to be super nice to actually get into the scene, and it's looking pretty good. Next thing, let's go ahead and fix some of this stuff. It's going to be a little bit laggy, but just know that it's going to lead to better kind of simulation. So we'll come over to simulation for substeps. I believe I stuck with like a 5 or something like that. Basically, those are just in betweening the frames of the actual animation and stuff, so that it can get some extra detail into the collisions and stuff. So basically, every frame it's going to check 5 in between frames. Whoops. It's going to check 5 subframes to actually calculate like subdivision and stuff like that and collision. So as you can see, that's much more accurate and stuff like that. It does get a little laggy and stuff, and so just keep that in mind that you do need a pretty beefy PC for this program. Anyways, we can see roughly around like frame 60 is where we actually tilt it. So before frame 60, we have to have all of our water in. And then let's see, by frame like 110, again, is the animation we set. It kind of drags this out and stuff like that. So anyway, we do need to go ahead and animate the actual water coming out. Now you could change this from continuous generation to like fill. But what I've actually found to work a little bit better is if we come we'll come to like frame 25. If we actually animate this emitter activity, it'll give us a similar result and allow us to have some more control with it. We're going to go ahead and press this button. It'll add a animation thing to our timeline, and then we can just play around with this. So first of all, we want to have the emitter disabled at the start, and then around like we'll say frame 26 is when we want it to be enabled. So it is just a kind of on-off relationship. So we can have the off thing at the very start, and then the frame that we want it on is just when we want to set it. So I'm just going to set it there, and then we'll say like 5 frames later, so like frame 30 for instance, we're going to turn it back off again. And then it sometimes doesn't like to actually add animation, so you just have to make sure you're not having any keyframes selected down here, because it will not apply them if you do that. It's kind of weird there. But yeah, so we're having basically a mission for 5 frames, and it's shutting off again, and then it's going to pour down. So let's go ahead and let this kind of bake out. Again, it's going to be a little bit slow, but we can just wait here. And what we're looking for is to see if we need to change any parameters at all. So yeah, it spawns in here. And the reason I did it for 5 frames is because I don't want it to continuously emit out. It just clogs up the simulation, and also we don't need all of that kind of, you know, render time and stuff like that. So there you go. You can still see some splash out here and stuff, and so that's where we can come over here again to change up the step rate, and we might do that for the final little bit. But as you can see, it's actually pouring out, and we have reached the maximum amount of voxels. And so what we could do instead, we'll come to simulation. First of all, I'm going to change this up. I think I ended in like a 15 or something like that, just to really get all of the kind of information over here correctly. And then down here, I think I did like 150 voxels, something like that. And then I think I increased the particles to like 100. Or sorry, not 100, but 10 million each for the particles and triangles, just getting more information in there. And we can go ahead and play this to see. Okay, so I went around it and kind of played around with some values, just had a little bit of fun of it. The main one I was playing around with was substeps. I did have to push that up ultimately to 20, just so that all of the liquid kind of stayed in the box right here. And as you can see, it's looking pretty good. And so just play around with some of the stuff and get a result that you want. I'm pretty sure that's the only thing I kind of messed around with off camera. I was just playing around. I tried doing some stickiness, but didn't really like that. But we're having this result, which I think is pretty cool, and I think will give us a pretty good result. And so once you are done and kind of like what we're doing up here, don't worry that we're having like some of this up here. That's because the liquid actually spawned outside of the kind of sphere as I was doing it. But anyway, as you can see, we have a pretty good result right now. We are ready to go ahead and bake this out. So what we can do to bake this out and put it back into Blender, we're going to bring the mesh down here. We're going to export the mesh right here, number of frames. So we're going to do the first frame to 1, and then we're going to do the kind of last frame as 175, because that was the end kind of frame range of our footage. And so that is good. Frame stride is set to 1. Don't change this. This will kind of do some funky stuff. And then you can maybe experiment with exporting out velocity. I've never played around with that, but I'm sure that is a decent result. But let's go ahead and open up the directory. Of course, you can make this go into wherever you want. I'm going to select the liquid folder. And then for me, I just like to set it to the project kind of name. And we'll set it to just that right there. And yeah, there we go. I might go ahead and let's version this up just so I don't run into any issues or anything, but we'll go ahead and export to file. So I'm going to go ahead and export now. It'll go ahead and calculate all of the mesh, and I'll be back after it is done calculating and exporting that out. Okay, so now back inside of Blender, we have our original scene. All we need to do is come up here to file. We're going to import in the Alembic file. So let's locate that. That'll be right here, our version 2, if you remember. Let's go ahead and add the Alembic back in, and we can double check that. We'll come to a frame where the liquid is actually here. And since we did scale it inside of LiquidGen, it's massive on the screen now. So we need to actually go ahead and scale this down. Now, unfortunately, you can't actually scale the object, I think, because it has a mesh sequence cache right here. And so what we need to do instead, we'll go and add a empty plane axis into the scene, and we'll select this first and then our empty second. So right here, Control P, set object parent to object keep transform right there. And then with our empty, we can actually scale this down. And in theory, if you have aligned everything, we should be able to scale this down to match the actual thing. And there we go. Let's come to wireframe, I guess. Yeah, so we'll just scale it down until basically you can see over here, like the corner of our object is kind of matching a little bit over here. And there you go. Now you can see it's actually falling inside of our object over here. And if we come back into the camera view, we can go ahead and see it in a cool view. We'll hide everything. So all of this stuff over here. And let's give this a little play and see. So yes, liquid comes out, kind of crashes down here. And there we go. Now it's coming out of the phone. And all of that good stuff. Now, of course, depending on what you actually want to do and stuff like that, you know, you can see I didn't spend a lot of time on the liquid and stuff, just getting a result, but you can definitely play around with it, but it gives us a pretty cool result. I may actually, instead of doing the version 2, I'll do the version 1 that I originally had, something like this. There we go. So yeah, as you can see, this is a much better result. I spent like an hour just tweaking around some values and stuff like that. So it gives us a pretty nice result, but it's the same kind of workflow. The only thing else I wanted to talk about in this portion of the video is just setting up some of our render settings. I'm in cycles, GPU compute, all the denoise, motion blur. Most importantly though, film transparent is turned on. And I want to showcase kind of how to get the water effect into the scene realistically. So we'll go ahead. Rehide everything into our scene. Now I did go ahead and place a HDRI, so we'll go up to world. I do have an HDRI in the scene, so let me actually just quickly redo that again. So instead in our color, we'll do an environment texture right here. We're gonna open up an HDRI. Now I will have the HDRI I actually use in the description of this video. But if we come over here to images, I believe I use this hospital room right there. We'll open the image up. Go to render just to see what we're doing. Also this ground plane real quickly, I went ahead and came over here to the object properties, set the visibility to shadow catcher. As you can see, it's a shadow catcher right now. And there we go. Now we have some lighting baked into the scene. Let's go ahead and play around with this shadow catcher because right now if I turn add a new material to this, and if I turn the transmission all the way up, you can see it's basically water. And let's turn the roughness down. There you go. Now it's basically like water, right? But like I'm seeing a lot of white. I'm not seeing a lot of the table reflection. So in order to actually go ahead and do that, let me go ahead and turn off visibility of the shadow catcher just so you can see what we're actually doing. But we have this set up here. And it's a white material right now. We need to go ahead and instead of adding a white material, we need to add a new material to this. And I'm going to plug in a texture coordinate, or sorry, not a texture coordinate, image texture right here. We're going to go ahead and open this up. This is going to be our image sequence. So right here, we're going to hit A to add all of our EXR sequence in there. And then instead of repeat, we're going to set it to mirror mirror the operation. We're going to auto refresh so that it updates every single frame. And then real quickly, you can see it's kind of all whack and stuff over here. What we need to do is Control T to add a texture coordinate mapping node, set the texture coordinate to window instead of UV, so it projects from the camera's point of view. And the only other thing, we see some like reflections and stuff here with our HDRI. I'm going to turn off the reflection, so bump up the roughness and then down the specular right here. So bump that IOR value down, and there you go. Now you can actually see, we turn on the shadow catcher, you can actually see some of the reflections through the water. And so that's how you kind of add some of that stuff in. But yeah, anyway, we'll go ahead and apply that to our headphone object as well. So if I Control L, hit M to add the material. So now both of those have the same material. And there we go. That's pretty much all I did for that kind of version of the scene. I do have some kind of other stuff. We have this set to hold out and stuff. We honestly are not going to see this in the render, so I'm just going to go ahead and turn this collection off. This collection, by the way, I just have the headphones, the sphere, and the container in there. So I went ahead and just made it its own collection, so we'll turn that off. All we care about is this. Now, the final thing, of course, is we need to make this a little bit more of a kind of beer color like that. We'll go ahead and select the color right there. And then we could play around with the value of that because, 'cause it's a little dark. So something like that, you know, just play around with it, have some fun. This isn't like a photo real shot, so we can have a little bit more fun with it. But there you go. Now we have that beard color. And of course, we can set this up to render. I actually think I came up here to render as composition. I rendered as a image file. So we have our RGB layer and then our shadow catcher right here. I did do a shadow catcher pass for this shot just to save time. So in the view layer properties, just down here, shadow catcher. And let's go ahead and render out a frame just so I can show exactly what I'm doing inside of this. Okay, so here we go. We can see that we have both of these things right now. We can see that we have the kind of base image right here. And then we also have a shadow catcher. Again, I usually don't use this method, but for a quick and dirty shot like this is totally fine. You can see it's just a black and white kind of almost matte with some color data and stuff into it. But we can use this to combine in compositing. So that's pretty much all I did over here, just combining everything into a kind of workable thing. And yeah, I set that up to render as a EXR sequence using this file output node. So yeah, now we are ready to go ahead and hop over to compositing in color. Okay, so here is the final result that we got from this video. Again, if you do want to watch me do the camera tracking and then the whole compositing process for this shot, definitely take a look at my Patreon. That's a exclusive video over there. Only for $5 a month, you get access to all my Patreon exclusive content like that. But anyways, you can see this shot turned out pretty cool. Again, if I was doing this for like a client or anything like that, I'd probably hire a Houdini artist, stuff like that. But for a quick and dirty result using Liquid Gen inside of Blender, I think it looked pretty cool. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Again, links to Patreon and Discord are down in the description below, but I will catch you in the next video.